Hello, I'm Luke, the Hard Times Guy. Today I want to talk to you about my recent trifecta. Three things where I picked three winners right in a row, and I guess the third one's yet to be proven, but Lunsford, Arkansas, US 50 yard sale, and the Country Neighbors Tour June event. Weekend before last was Mother's Day weekend, and I went to Arkansas. Took my wife with me and my three beautiful daughters, and we went to Arkansas to an impromptu family reunion. And I'm going to make a video about that visit. Today I'm going to talk about part of the visit, but this isn't the video about that visit. This is just, I'm going to talk about Lunsford, Arkansas for a minute or two. I was born in Lunsford, Arkansas. And there was a time when Lunsford, Arkansas was more than a thriving community. It was a small town with lots of things going on in it. In fact, they even had a movie theater. Today, Lunsford, Arkansas has a Baptist church that survived, probably the only one that survived. There probably at one time was a Methodist church, some sort of a Pentecostal church, and maybe a Christian church there. I think there were several churches in Lunsford at one time, but now there's a Baptist church. And now there's an abandoned store building where at one time there were 3 or 4 stores or mercantiles or hardware stores or grocery stores, convenience stores, whatever you want to call them. There were 3 or 4 of those in Lunsford. Now there are none, but one is the building's still there, and you're going to see a picture of it. You're probably looking at it right now. The building's still there, and right next to it's where the theater was. And part of it's still there. And that's about the only commercial properties left in Lunsford. The rest of it's some houses that people live in, and there's a few houses going 4 directions from the pictures you just looked at. And I was born there in Lunsford, Arkansas. I went by the house where I was born, but I'm not sure which one it was, so I didn't take a picture of it. I know we were by it. I just don't know which of the two-story houses in Lunsford was the one I was born in. I came home, I got online, I tried to find out some more information about Lunsford, and the census information doesn't even list a population for Lunsford, Arkansas anymore. It lists a population for a district, which includes Lunsford. So I couldn't even tell you that, but for people that are local around from where I am, the Lunsford about the same size as maybe Bartlettsville, Indiana, or a little smaller than, say, Avoca. And Lunsford was real near to where we were and spending time in Arkansas, so we just went down there to look around, and I'm sharing that with you. And coming soon will be a video about our visit to Arkansas. Larry told me that Kurt liked to go down to this place and hang out, talk to the old man that owned it. I think his name was Reeves. Evidently the old man knew Dad from some time in the past, and he enjoyed talking to Kurt. Kurt enjoyed talking to him. That must have been the summer of '64. Kurt went down there and spent about half the summer that year, and I think Betty and I went to Arkansas to get him. I think that's what we were doing down there. In the summer '64, we went down there to get Kurt after he had been down there most of the summer. Let's move on. The house I was born in Lunsford belonged to probably you would call him a wealthy person. He owned the property surrounding the house, a farm which was probably at least 160 acres, maybe more. And my parents lived in an upstairs part of a 2-story house that the landowner owned. His name was McDuffie. And always, before this visit, I believed that we lived in a different house, that I was just born in that house. I thought that we lived in like a shotgun shack on that property, or a converted Mexican house or something like that, a small dwelling, and we lived there, and I was born in the McDuffie house because my mother went into the landlord's house to for the doctor to give birth to her because it had running water, and the house I lived in didn't have running water. And on this visit, I discovered that here I am, 77 years old, and I had a misconception about that. My mother never explained that to me very well. They actually lived in the house I was born in. They lived in an apartment upstairs. One of my dad's sisters, Gladys, she lived upstairs in that house as well. And I don't know whether they had separate apartments upstairs or whether they lived in the same place together, but in the McDuffie house upstairs, my family lived. I was born in that house. My dad, when he got home from the service, got married to my mother. There were several provisions in what's called commonly called the GI Bill, which Congress provided for veterans from veteran servicemen from World War II to have certain benefits. And through that program, my father bought a 1947 B John Deere tractor, and he bought a 1947 Chevrolet pickup truck. And I say 1947 because that's there again, that may not be entirely accurate. Those tractors were new, but they might have been, the tractor was new, the truck was new. It might have been 1946, it might have been 1945, but they were new vehicles. I think they were 1947s. My father bought those, and he began to try to make a living farming, share crop farming on property owned by Mr. McDuffie. And that lasted a couple of years maybe, because by the time I was born in 1947, by the time I was 3 years old, 1950, my mother and father moved from Arkansas to Indiana. And by February 1951, their third child was born, Diane. She was born February 1951. She was born in Indiana. So I'm not sure about some of those details, but I have no recollection of living in Arkansas. My only recollection of anything in that time period is from things that were related to me in stories by other people. I'm going to share one of those with you today because it's going to transition me into the second of my trifectas. When we came to Indiana, I think first of all we lived with my mother's parents, my grandparents, at 601 T Street. I'm not certain of that, but I think at least for a matter of weeks we lived there. And a short time after we got to Indiana, then my parents purchased a home, and I think they availed themselves of another of my father's service benefits to get a loan on a place where I was raised, 526 East 15th Street, Bedford, Indiana. That house had what I'm going to call, today it would be called a mud room. It was just a room, an extra room in that house. You walked up on the porch through the back door and you're in that room. When you walk through the back door, if you look to the left, there was a door there, and it led down a flight of stairs into the basement of the home. If you look to the right, there was another door, and it led to another little room there that probably at one time was a closed-in porch or some kind of a sunroom, because that little room on the corner of the house had 5 or 6 or 7 windows in it facing south and east, and so the upper half of the walls in that room, two of the walls were windows. Later, when I was a teenager, that became my bedroom, but in those days it was just another like utility room where we stored things. And if you walked straight ahead out of that room, you walked into the kitchen of the house. But in that room was a utility cabinet, one of those made out of metal cabinets about yay wide and about 14, 15 inches deep, had two doors on it, and lightweight, easy to move around cabinet set against the wall in that room. And when I was very young, my father worked at General Motors, and he worked in the sand foundry part where they made cast iron brake drums, I think. And when he came in from work, he took his safety toed boots off, and he took his clothes off that he wore to work, and he hung them in that utility cabinet. When he got ready to go back to work, he put those clothes back on and went back to work the next day. He worked night shift most of the time that he worked at General Motors. And I remember those clothes being in that cabinet, and I remember the smell that they had, which was from burnt sand in an iron foundry. My father's clothes smelled like that. That cabinet had a hole in the left door that was about 30, 31 inches off the floor, and right below the handle that opened that door, there was a hole, a small hole, and my mother always told a story about that hole. When we lived in Arkansas, that cabinet sat in the kitchen where we lived. My high chair sat in front of that cabinet. One day my father came in from somewhere. He had a .22 rifle. He laid it down on the kitchen table. When he did, it went off. It was loaded. It fired a shot that went through the spindles on the back of the high chair and through that cabinet. That hole was from a .22 caliber rifle, accidentally discharged. Had I been in the chair, it probably would have killed me. My mother, for some reason, really liked to tell that story because I heard it hundreds of times as a young person. The reason I even thought of that as it relates to this story is I had a high chair like the one my mother described sat in front of that cabinet. I had it just over the weekend. The US 50 yard sale was this past weekend. And if you don't know what the US 50 yard sale is, I'm not going to waste time here explaining it to you. Google that and find out what it is. But the US 50 yard sale was supposed to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this past weekend. It rained Thursday and Friday, and some of the people still had their yard sale. Some of them didn't. I intended to be open Friday. I was not because it's pouring down rain. But Betty and I got out Thursday in between thunderstorms, and I purchased a high chair, a little high chair like the one that I had when I was a baby 77 years ago, 76 years ago, however long ago it was. I'm 77 years old. A high chair like that, and this one, these were like bentwood chairs, much like this one I'm sitting in, only they were small for youth. They had a tray that lifted up and stood up behind the high chair. You could set the child in the chair. You took the tray, you brought it down over their head. The tray helped hold them in the chair. Now they could still wriggle and maybe get out from under the tray and into the floor. They could escape, and that's probably one of the reasons that they don't make high chairs like that anymore, because kids probably hurt themselves getting out of them. But it was that kind of high chair, and it had that tray, and I've owned lots of chairs like that. In fact, last year I had 3 of them, very similar to that. None of them had the tray still attached to them, although all of them at one time you could see where they'd had a tray. This one had its tray. Not only did it have its tray, it had a white and blue porcelain tray within the tray. In other words, where the wood was hollowed out for the tray, like you mostly see them, there was a white porcelain piece of metal with a blue trim on it, much like you see in the old dish pans, molded to the shape of that tray that's fit down in the tray. I'd never seen one of those. I'm sure that there were maybe a lot of them, maybe a lot of those chairs that I'd owned before originally had that tray, but it was now gone. This high chair had the tray, and it had the white porcelain insert within the tray, and I bought it at the East 50 yard sale or last Thursday between here and Brownstown. I bought that thing. And I brought it in this building and I set it down right over there. Well, I'd intended to have my buildings open for the US 50 yard sale. I hadn't done it before because I didn't know whether I could get people to come from US 50 3 miles to find me. But I thought this year I'm going to try it, and I intended to do it for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But Thursday it rained, Friday it rained. I didn't do it. I didn't want to mess with all that work that it takes to get stuff out and put it back in the rain. But Saturday was a beautiful day, so when I got up Saturday, although I wasn't ready, I hadn't cleaned up this room. You couldn't even get through my barn. All the aisles were blocked with stuff. I decided I was going to put my signs up and see what happened. And I thought I'll have time after I get my signs up to get those aisles opened up out there, to get some stuff put out in the sunshine, and I'll have time to do that. They won't overrun me. They never have. They always just kind of trickle in, and it's usually not really good until the afternoon, usually when I got the barn open. Well, I don't know whether it was because that was the only day that the US 50 yard sale had pretty sunshine or what it was. I put those signs up, and I got to put 4 signs up to get them from the highway here coming from that direction, and then I go to the other end of the road and put a sign up on Tunnelton Road, and then I come back home. By the time I got that done, there were 4 or 5 vehicles in my driveway already, and it was like that all day long. They just kept coming all day, and it was late in the afternoon before I got the last obstacle out of the way over there on the other side, before I got the last obstacles out of the way so people could actually get in there in the barn and see everything. But it didn't seem to matter to them. They came, climbed over stuff, dug around in stuff. Had one of the best days of selling with the barn open that I've ever had. Saturday, US 50 yard sale. The little high chair that I bought, sitting right there, hadn't even put a price on it yet. Somebody came in, they asked about it. I put a price on it. They said, I want it. They paid me and they left with it. And I don't even have a picture of it. The only one I ever saw like that, and I intended to take a picture of it. I figured I had plenty of time to do that. But I was too busy to take a picture of it Saturday, and it got out of here. And now the only one I ever saw, I don't even have any evidence that I one time had one. Needless to say, if I'm still around this time next year when they have the US 50 yard sale, I'll do a better job of preparation, hopefully, and I'll be open. I won't be open on Sunday like they close the thing out on Sunday. I got family obligations and church obligations and things like that I normally do on Sunday. I won't be open on Sunday, but I'll probably be open the other 3 days because it's a very successful venture for me this year. In fact, the Thursday when Betty and I were dodging thunderstorms, I managed to buy a few things. I already told you about the high chair. Bought a few other things too, and most of them I set them down in here, and somebody bought them. Somebody bought them. In fact, Betty was all dismayed because one of the things I bought, I hadn't peeled the price off of it from where I bought it at a yard sale to put my new price on it, and so I sold it to this young lady who wanted it, and the old price was still on it, and I of course sold it for more than that. Betty was all dismayed that they're going to think that you robbed them because you bought that thing for X number of dollars and then you sold it to them for X number of dollars, and that was a significant difference. I said, Betty, can't help that. I said, I didn't buy it to sell it for the same amount I bought it for. I didn't even buy it to sell it. I bought it so that our great-grandkids could play with it when they were out here. And it turns out they never even got to see it. And now somebody else's kids are going to get to play with it. And it's well worth what the lady paid for it. If she bought it brand new and it was like brand new, she would have had to pay way more than that for it. So she got a bargain. I got a bargain. Everybody's happy. But my great-grandkids, if they find out I had that and sold it before they ever got to play with it, they wouldn't be happy. But I'm not going to tell them. I didn't take a picture of it either, so they won't know what they missed. East 50 or US 50 yard sale. And finally, that comes to Country Neighbors Tour. And those of you that don't know what the Country Neighbors Tour is, you're going to have to get online, Google that too. Country Neighbors Tour. Mostly in Lawrence County, but there's maybe some of them still in Monroe County that are on the tour, and there may be, I'm sure there's some in Jackson County that are on the tour. These are home-based businesses where I think all the participants now are ladies, but I'm not sure of that. Home-based businesses where people have an open house in their business on a prescribed date, and they advertise it in a website, and they advertise it with brochures that they leave around in thrift shops and antique shops. People come from really all over the state. I've had people here who came to do the Country Neighbors Tour from as far away as Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they told me that they come down here every year. 4 ladies get together, come to this area, make the loop on the Country Neighbors Tour, go out and eat and go home. They make a day of it every year. Fort Wayne, Indiana, that's 3.5 hours from here. So they do a good job of drawing people in, and when the Country Neighbors Tour is having their event, I usually open the barn. I might make another video, I might not, before that sale, but put it on your calendars. I think it's the second weekend in June, but don't take my word for it. Look it up on your computer, on your phone, however you get to the internet. Country Neighbors Tour, June event. Get those dates. Come by and see me. Go support all the ladies on the Country Neighbors Tour. That's my trifecta for the last week. I went to Arkansas, had a great time, enjoyed it with my wife and my 3 children. I'm going to make a video about that. Look for it coming up soon. I came home. I managed to be a customer on the US 50 yard sale on Thursday between thunderstorms. I managed to be a vendor on the US 50 yard sale Saturday. Had a great day, thanks to all the people that came out. And I'm going to be open again the next time. Well, I'm open anytime you can catch me here, but the next time I'm going to be scheduled open is Country Neighbors Tour, June event. Look it up on their website. Support them, and then come see me. I'm the Hard Times Guy. You have a good day.